Hey y'all, what's up? What's up? What's up? This is Paul, and God has qualified me to be your hip hop relationship and recovery coach. And I'm bringing to you another Kick Your Butt Out episode. As usual, y'all, before I get off into the content of the day, I have to say what I always say, and I strongly encourage y'all again and again and again to get this into your thought processes so that you can incorporate this into your lives. And that is, if you're looking for a butt, it's going to always be easy to find one. And that, my friends, is a promise. All right, let's get off into what we want to talk about today. Let me take a sip of this hydration. Pretty good. All right, let's get off into what we want to talk about today. Again, every last one of the episodes of Kick Your Butt Out is inspired by something that God has said, by a situation, an occurrence, or something that I've heard, something that I've seen, a conversation that I've had. Is always inspired by something. It's never something that just anything just pops out of the air. It's always inspired by something. And today's episode was inspired by a conversation my wife and I was having the other day. It made me realize, or made me think about, right, my story and many other people's stories, and how some of our stories have a sad ending when if we had the right exposure or tapped into the exposure that was available, it would have had a different ending. And watch this, it wouldn't have ended soon as it did in many cases. What I mean by that, a lot of people have passed away before their time because of a lot of stuff that went on in their lives. And so with that being said, let me just give you all the title of today's episode. Today's episode, I've decided the title, You Hurting, But, and many of us can relate to that. You hurting, but, and when I think about you hurting, there's a saying that many of us know of, right? And you hear lots of people say they'll take this to the grave, right? I'm going to take this to the grave. I'm going to take that to the grave, meaning that they're not going to ever talk about it. And the reality of it is that we don't take that, again, just being able to sit back and really think about what's been going on, or how many people's lives have ended so soon. We say we're going to take that thing to the grave, but that thing that we said that we're going to take to the grave, it usually takes us to the grave. I'm going to say that again. That thing that we said that we were going to take to the grave, it usually be that thing that takes us to the grave. And so I want you to understand that that thing that you're taking, I want to kick your butt out is about having a platform where you can feel safe enough to find a resource, or Kick Your Butt Out can be a resource for you to be able to drop that thing off so that thing won't take you to the grave or to an early grave. And many of the things that we want to take to the grave are things that maybe we have done or things that has happened to us. And for people who have done some things that was hurtful and harmful, the guilt and the shame usually eats us up to a place where, again, we end up killing ourselves, or, and maybe the death was slow, maybe the death was fast, but nevertheless, we end up killing ourselves because of something that we have done. and we are overcome with shame and guilt and hurt because of the thing that we have done. Because, let me say this to you. Everybody has a conscience. It's just a matter of when we're going to tap into that conscience, or when that conscience is going to start to overtake us. And so, like I said, many of us, the shame and the guilt of some of the things we said, some of the things we've done, some of the things we didn't say, and some of the things that we didn't do, the shame keeps us in the place and in a situation where we won't talk about it, we won't reveal it, we won't go somewhere, and sometimes in some cases, watch this, us revealing it is going to bring some consequences, whether it's some incarceration, whether it's some separation, or whatever the case may be. But I'm here to say they say you can't heal what you won't reveal. And I'm here to say that I 100% agree with that, because that's the only way that you're going to be able to heal from some of the things that you have done, is that you reveal it to somebody in a safe place and in a safe environment. Again, it may cause some consequences. So be it. So be it. It may cause some consequences, but still drop that thing off so that it won't take you to an early grave. The other part of it is that, some of the things has happened to us. The field that I work in, right? There are many men and many women, right? Because I work in the addiction field. I work in the recovery field. I work in the substance abuse field. And many men and women that I come across continuously go back and forth in active use or active addiction, because they are overcome with the hurt and the pain of things that has happened to them. Many of them, when it happened when they were little children, and they grew up with that pain. And the crazy part about it is that when I think about my own story now, there was nothing bad that happened to us. I appreciate the fact that my mother kept us protected. But one of the things that I did notice about my situation and my journey is that the older I got, the more I felt the pain. The older I got, the stronger the hurt became. And I did more and more things that added to the hurt rather than healed the hurt. And this is an experience that I witness on a daily basis when I'm dealing with people with substance use issues, alcoholism, drugs, or whatever the vices may be. And again, like I said, more often than not, one of the main reasons why they continuously go back and forth to it is because they are still hurting, and a lot of them don't know yet that there is a way out, that there is an opportunity and a place where you can have that safety needed to be able to cry, to be able to talk about it, to be able to shout, to be able to scream, whatever you need to do to heal that hurt. There are places, there are sources, there are resources that are available to us or to you to be able to do that again, so that hurt won't end up taking you to an early grave. I see it so much. I want to talk about. So let me say this. Now you hear the phrase drug and alcohol problem. Well, let me help you with something. Many times it's the problems that sent people to drugs and alcohol. I remember my own story. When I think back on my story, I remember the pain that I was experiencing when I was young. And I couldn't talk about that pain because I grew up in the seen and not heard era. I grew up in the boy, shut up before I give you something to cry from era. I grew up in the era of be a man, be tough, shut up. And Watch this. You are already hurting. I'm already hurting. And I have somebody punch me with everything that is in them at the same time and tell me to shut up. So now I got double hurt. I have double pain going on. I got physical, mental, and emotional pain that I'm experiencing, and I can't even say nothing about it. And so what ended up happening is, that's why I say, stop saying that drugs and alcohol is the problem. And why I'm saying this now, don't get me wrong. They do end up becoming a problem when they start subtracting things from our lives. But in the beginning, or in the person who's using these drugs or alcohol or whatever the vices is, in their mind, the drugs and the alcohol is the safe place and the answer. When we understand, we know it's not. But that's what gave me my safe space when I was young. Over the years that I was going through my pain, the drug that I used was the thing that gave me my safe place and my answer. I didn't have to feel it. I didn't have to think about it. I didn't have to talk about it. If I wanted to talk about it, I always knew that there was no platform or space for me to be able to have those conversations in the circles or the community that I was around. Right? There was none. I remember trying to have a conversation about it, and somebody boldly told me, "Shut your punk such and such so and so up." Trust me. And when I heard that, guess what? Let me go get high, because drugs ain't gonna tell me that. So again, when I think about my situation, the drugs became my safe place and my answer. It wasn't a problem for me. It helped me to not have to think about my problems. It helped me to not have to cry about my problems. It helped to numb me to a lot of things that I needed, and I knew that the people that I was around wasn't going to give me. So again, unfortunately, the drugs and the alcohol or whatever the vices are, they aren't the problem as much as they are the answer and the safe place for people who use them. Now, let me go on and show you that the drugs is not the problem. Watch this: the drugs and alcohol are not the problem. I know of a situation of a person who had been in recovery somewhere between 25 and 30 years. What that meant is that this person had no interactions at all with any mood or mind-altering substances or chemicals for between 25 and 30 years. My friend said that they were close friends. He called him one night, and he wasn't using, had a conversation with him like the normal conversations that they have, right? The next thing he know, he was watching the news, and that friend that he was talking to had went and jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge. It had absolutely nothing to do with drugs and alcohol, because like I said, he had been in recovery for 25 and 30 years. It was something that was going on in him that was hurting him to a place where it took him to an early grave. It caused him to take his own life. So I want you all to understand that it's not so much, and again, not giving, I want you to understand, I'm not giving anybody a pass to use drugs or alcohol or any type of vices. I'm not saying any of that at all. I'm just saying that unfortunately, because we have grown so accustomed to taking stuff to the grave with us that we don't talk about anything, and that be the situation. Unfortunately, we end up in early graves because of that. The other thing that has happened as a result of the hurt and pain that we suffer from, many of us, right? myself included, many of us hinder or postpone the blessings and the greatness that God has bestowed upon us because of the hurt and the pain that we have not dealt with. But the thing is, one of the things that contributes to that is that we have grown so accustomed to being in a society where we've had people who are supposed to be safe places make it feel unsafe for us to be able to have those conversations that we need to have. Like I said, I grew up in the era, be seen and not heard, shut up if I give you something to cry for, you be a man, be tough. I grew up in that era. Were people malicious in it? No, they thought they meant well with what they meant well with what they was doing, but what they was doing was hurting me more than it was helping me. And many of you all out there can relate to what it is that I'm talking about. Now back to us making it unsafe. We have made it unsafe for people to talk. T.D. Jakes said it like this. He says, we have taught men how to shut up, and then we asking them to talk. Or we mad because they won't talk. That's what he said. We have taught men to shut up, and women, and then we mad because they won't say nothing. But we have made it unsafe for people to have these conversations. In our homes, right? Made it unsafe, or have gotten hurt by people in our homes. Many people out there have been molested, abused in many ways by the people in their homes that were supposed to create a safe atmosphere and a safe place for them. Even people have hurt other people in the name of God, putting God's name in it and hurting people, and people don't even feel like God is safe. They not only don't feel like people are safe because everybody that they've come across has hurt them, right? They don't even feel that God is safe either because some of the people who have hurt them in the name of God. And that, I'm appalled by that. I'm appalled by that because, again, like I said, I have relatives. I have relatives who are in early graves right now. Many of them are in early graves right now because the safe places that were supposed to be safe places for them was the ones that caused the most hurt. And again, a lot of these hurts came from people in the name of God. And you wonder why people don't trust God. You wonder why people don't trust people. You wonder why people will take it to the grave and end up allowing that thing to take them to a grave. Let me give you, here's two reasons that inspired this particular episode of Kick Your Butt Out. You hurting, but my wife and I were having a conversation the other day, and she brought up a star who had killed himself. I think he shot himself in the head, something to that effect. She said, remember Twitch? Now, at first it didn't register, but then I was like, oh yes, I remember that guy. He was a choreographer. He was a prolific dancer. This brother was cold at dancing. Let me say it like that. This brother was cold. He was on shows. He was featured on shows. His career was blossoming. I watched him on many occasions. His career as a dancer was blossoming. And all of a sudden, one day, he blew his brains out. And everybody wondered, what happened? Oh, his career was doing this, he doing this. And watch this. Every time I had seen this guy, he had a smile on his face. He was full of life. That's what it felt like. He was full of life. He was gleaming. He was, glowing. He was growing. He was doing all this. Every time I seen him, I never saw that man with a frown on his face. I never saw that man looking like he was hurting. I never saw that man looking like he needed to cry or he was just got done crying. Every time I saw that man, he had a smile on his face and he was doing what he was meant to do. He was walking in his craft, right? Watch this. Again, blew his brains out. My wife said just recently they found his journals. And in one of his journals, like again, we talking about you hurting, and I'm gonna take it to the grave. And I'm gonna show you right now how it took him to an early grave. Now he didn't take it to the grave because his journals told on it. It was just too late. That man in one of his journals wrote how he was molested and raped as a kid. What bothered me with that was that because of the cultures and the atmosphere and the mindsets we had raised our little boys in, they learned not to say nothing. He had shame, he had guilt, because a lot of them think it's their fault when it's not. But this guy had shame, he had guilt. He was a man, right? He was a boy, he was a male. Grew up in South Central Los Angeles, so he couldn't show any signs of emotion and feeling outside of anger and rage and being too tough Tony. He couldn't show anything other than that because of the atmosphere that he grew up in. And then watch this, because I've known people who I've come across in my profession that have said this. Now watch this. A lot of them did a lot of stuff that they did as a man to prove that, okay, I am a man. When you don't need to prove that you're a man from a place that is going to hurt or harm you. Because when I'm saying, let me make sure that I make this understood. So a lot of these young men who have been touched and molested by other men, a lot of these little boys that have been molested and touched by men, to prove in their mind that they're not gay, they gonna do a lot of extra masculine stuff or masculine things to prove to themselves that they're not gay. And they thinking that, watch this, in their mindsets that if I do a certain thing, it will show the people outside of me, it will make them think that I'm gay because I've been touched by a man when I was little. Or whatever age that I was, I've been touched by a man, and they overcompensate, right? And then you understand why depression and anxiety and all of these things go on and overtake these people who grow up to be men and still on the inside are hurting little boys because somebody who was supposed to protect them, somebody who was supposed to be a safe place for them, is the ones that stole their innocence. And I'm here to say this. Listen, man, if you're out there listening to this podcast or this particular episode, I need you to learn that you have greatness and extraordinary potential inside of you because God has done it. If you say that God is your Father, He has blown the breath of life into you and made you a living being. So all of us have some of Him in us. So we have some wonderful qualities about ourselves. The only way that you're going to be able to walk in that greatness and the extraordinary potential that God has put inside of you is when you do what Jay-Z said in one of his raps. He said, you can't heal what you won't reveal. You got to find a safe place and a safe person, a safe atmosphere to not let that thing take you to the grave. Simple. I can't make it no more simple than that. So this is what this episode is about. You hurting, but kick the butt out. Take that hurt and go somewhere and allow it to be healed. The thing about it is, watch this. If I'd be more inclined to go to the hospital and get my arm fixed if I broke it, before I'd be inclined to go and talk to somebody about the fact that I felt like I wasn't loved by my mother the way my other siblings were loved. That's what we'd be more inclined to do that rather than that. And that is just as important a need as that one. Simple as that, y'all. Here's another one, and I'm gonna end it with this one. Another story. But again, Twitch did not have to go. He did not have to allow that thing to take him to another grave if he had found someone or some place or some space where he could talk about and work through what happened to him as a child or whenever it happened to him, whenever it happened to him, he could have worked through that thing. I'm gonna talk about my brother. Give me a second. This guy right here, my brother. Small with his brother. That thing took him to the grave. That thing, that hurt, that pain took him to the grave. He learned how to not talk about it. He learned how to not deal with it. He learned how not to work through it. Drugs became his safe place in this answer as well. My brother was one of the most gifted men that I've ever known. He was my role model. He was the oldest of us three, of my mother's three boys. He was he was the male figure in my life. My dad died when I was 5. We didn't have the same dad, but there was no other male role model in my life that mimicked what I wanted to be like when I was young, except for him. So anyway, I want to talk about taking stuff to the grave. See, my brother ended up being diagnosed with prostate cancer in 2000. He got diagnosed in 2017. He ended up passing away in 2021. So after the diagnosis, he lived about 4 years with it, and it literally destroyed him from the inside out because he had so much emotional and mental and spiritual and relational pain that when that came, he looked at it as just another pain. And he decided that he was not going to take chemotherapy or anything to heal that or put that thing in remission. I remember one of the last conversations I had with him. I said, why won't you? Because he called me, watch this. He was hurting, but he called me and he was in tears. He said, Paul, there's sometimes my bones hurt so bad that and he went, and let me say this, he worked up until the day or the week that he passed away. He still worked. He said, there's times when I have to sit wherever I am, it doesn't matter where I am, for hours at a time because the pain that's going on in my bones is so excruciating that I can't move. Now, keep in mind, he lived in Chicago. So Chicago can get cold some of those days. And it can get hot and humid some of those days as well. So you got to deal with that as well as the mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical pain along with knowing that he's dying. Not that he chose to die. Because one of the things that he said was, he said, Paul, when I asked him why he chose not to take the chemotherapy, he said, Paul, I'm ready to go. It's so evil here. That was his words. I'm ready to go. It's so evil. It's so evil here. So anyway, I understood that hurt and pain that he said. I've had so much hurt and pain. I'm ready. I can't take no more. That's basically what he was saying. And his pain started as a child. Again, my brother was one of the most gifted and smartest men that I've ever known. He was so smart that they tried to skip him to the next grade twice. My mother didn't let him do the first one, but she let him do the second one. That's how smart he was, a computer genius. Matter of fact, he had just got his degree as a computer science or something to that effect before he died. So again, a genius, not a misfit. You know what I mean? Not somebody that's not doing nothing with his life. A lot of that was hindered because of the pain that was within, right? And the drugs and the alcohol that he was using was also hindering it, because it was a safe place and answer that he had done it so long, it had become a problem too. It was already a problem, but it was still his safe place and his answer. And we got to get to a place where we let people have an opportunity to talk to us about what's really going on, so all of the detriments will not be their safe places and their answer. So when I think about my brother, I think about some of the stuff that he had to endure as a human being. I remember, and let me say this, I'm not here to talk about nobody from a negative standpoint. I'm not here to put anybody down. I just want to speak on the reality that happened in his life that I witnessed. I witnessed this. So when we were young, the singer Stephanie Mills, that's when the Broadway show The Wiz. The show The Wiz was on Broadway, and everybody in the cast were Black, and Stephanie Mills was Dorothy. This is when her career first started. So my mother and my grandmother and them went to see it, right? They loved it. And my mother was always into, things like that, musicals and Broadway plays and all that kind of stuff. My mother was always into that kind of stuff. And so when she experienced those things, she wanted us to experience them as well. So my mother had saved up money for us to go to see The Wiz. We were all excited. My brother's dad was living with us at the time, and drugs was his answer. Drugs and alcohol was his answer and safe place. At that time, I didn't know it, just thought he was a drug addict and an alcoholic. Didn't understand that man was doing what he was doing because of the pain or whatever it is that he had experienced over his life. Back to the story. So the night before we were scheduled, right, to go and see The Wiz, we all excited about this. And my mother had given my brother the money to hold. And I think my mother went to work. She went somewhere. She went somewhere. And his dad had found out that he had the money. And I watched his dad turn him upside down and rob him of all of our money to go and see The Wiz. He took his son, turned him upside down, and robbed him, because my brother held on for dear life to the point that's what he had. That was the extreme that he had to go to get the money from my brother. Now, can you imagine that? Can you imagine that? You're excited about going to do an event that you always wanted to do, because we were into those things that my mother was into. We was all excited. And not only that, you got to the point and couldn't go, it was because of the person who was supposed to be a safe place for you had become so unsafe that he violated everything that was within you as a kid. That's worse than physical pain. That's worse. No, I'm not going to say that. But I feel like that's worse than physical pain, for your dad to do something like that to you. Now, can you imagine my brother, and it never was reconciled, right? That was never dealt with, that was never reconciled. I remember my brother saying that, he said, oh man, he was just a waste of human life. That's what he thought about his dad. And he said that from a hurt standpoint. Because let me say this, every young man wants their dad to be their hero, not their villain, not the greatest villain, right? But that's what happened to my brother. So what I'm saying all to say this, You have to think about all of the hurt and pain that he endured over those years, because that was never reconciled. And for you to think, and it wasn't a secret, everybody knew that it was his dad. So can you imagine that? And along with all the expectations that was upon my brother because of his genius, right? Not saying not saying that that was a bad thing to have some expectations out of him, but when I think about my brother's life, that thing took him to an early grave. Period. That thing took a lot of the hurt and pain that my brother experienced was what told him, I'm ready to go. I'm gonna take this to the grave. He never had the opportunity to even talk about that to anybody from a healthy standpoint. He never had the opportunity to talk to anybody about the disappointments that he had from his daddy. Never. Or whatever other pains that he experienced. And so my brother's in the early grave because of it. Twitch is in the early grave because of it. That man that jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge is in the early grave because of it. Many people out there still strung out on drugs and alcohol and prostitution. Didn't change sexes. I'm gonna keep it 100. They didn't change. They've done so many detrimental things in the name of being hurt. They think that they're angry. Yes, there's some anger there, but that's a secondary emotion. What's usually the primary emotion to anger is hurt and pain. And so you who are listening to this podcast, you may be hurting, but you haven't done anything to heal that hurt or heal that pain. Well, that's what we want to do. We want to help you heal that hurt and that pain. On the other hand, you may be hurting, but there's an opportunity, there's a resource, there's a place, there's a person, there's an ear, there's a shoulder that says, you don't have to let that take you to an early grave. You don't have to let that take you to an early grave. You don't have to live with that. You can heal from it and live the best life possible for yourself. My life is living proof. I had a whole lot of hurt and pain. And I did a whole lot of dope, a whole lot of heroin for 30 years. I'm almost 10 years in to recovery now. I don't have a desire for a drug or none of that stuff that was causing me detriment, causing me pain. I don't even have a desire to be around people, places, and things that's going to cause me hurt and pain. And I promise y'all this, I'm making sure that as much as it lies within me, right? Not perfect, but I'm making sure that as much as it lies within me, I don't cause anybody any hurt and any pain, because I know how it feels to have hurt and pain going on the inside. I used to say it like this, and this is how I'm going to end it. I used to say, you know what? I would rather somebody hit me with a baseball bat, because that pain will go away quicker than that internal pain. Because that internal pain is that one that usually sends us to take it to the grave, and ultimately an early grave. This is Paul, y'all, your hip hop relationship and recovery coach. I love every last one of y'all out there. There's absolutely nothing that you can do about it. Until next time, be well, do the next right thing. God bless you all. And if you're looking for a butt, it's going to always be easy to find one. That, my friends, is a promise. Deuces.